Hello, welcome to The Conversation, the News Central Television. This is a program where we bring you up to speed with all the political happenings on the African continent. I am Gbenga Aborowa.
And I am Rita Omodia. Today on The Conversations, we'll be looking at countries in Nigeria and Kenya. And of course, we're also looking at the mixed feelings and reactions in Kenya as the Supreme Court upholds William Ruto's victory and ruled that he was properly elected president, dismissing several petitions seeking to annul the result of the 9 August election.
And in Nigeria, the crisis currently rocking the opposition People's Democratic Party, PDP, may not be coming to an end anytime soon, as Governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, is yet again meeting with key members of the ruling All Progressive Congress.
I mean, the story goes on and on, Gbenga. This Kenya election, we've been on it since
almost
I think even
ending.
before August 9th, before the elections.
And it looks like we're going to do the same for Angola's elections, because the opposition UNITA has challenged the decision to declare MPLA winners in that election. So I guess we need to work on our electoral process in Africa, so we don't have a situation where elections are always contested.
I mean, let them copy Nigeria. Take, for example, Goodluck Jonathan.
So if it's free, fair, credible, and there's a lot of trust in the Electoral Commission, then, I mean, it's fair game. But when people have doubts in the system, that's why
people always have doubts in the elections. But anyways, we'll begin with stories from Kenya right now.
Yes, we begin in Kenya, where the Supreme Court has ruled that William Ruto was properly elected president, dismissing several petitions seeking to annul the result of the August 9th election. His rival, Raila Odinga, and others had alleged that a massive fraud, including tampering with result forms, had taken place. The 8 petitions challenging the elections were all dismissed. In a unanimous decision on behalf of the 7 judges, Chief Justice Martha Koome said the court found some were based on forged documents and sensational information.
She added that no credible evidence that the electronic voter transmission system had been tampered with by a middleman was presented. She also added that Ruto had met the constitutional threshold of gathering 50% plus 1 of votes cast. The ruling ends a protracted election dispute that started after polls closed last month. 55-year-old Ruto will now be sworn in as the country's 5th president next week. I mean, this is amid a riot that are reportedly going on right now in Kenya. And joining us live for this conversation, we have Declan Galvin. He is the head of Insight Information and Intelligence at WS. We also have Ambrose, Koech, an economist and statistician. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us on the conversation.
Thank you.
So I'll start with you, Declan. I mean, what was your reaction to this verdict by the Kenyan Supreme Court? The Chief Justice, Martha Koome, said there was no evidence brought forward to show tampering of the election results.
Okay, we're expecting Ambrose. Declan. So, Ambrose, before you answer that question, let's take the clip of the Supreme Court Justice's decision made earlier today. Okay, I guess we'll get back to it in the course of the program. Now, Ambrose.
Okay, if Declan is with us, I think I'll start with Declan. Declan, if you're with us, I mean, okay, Ambrose, so what's your reaction to it?
Thank you. Thank you for hosting me at News Central. I would say my reaction to the ruling by the Supreme Court of Kenya today was more of an affirmation of what the IEBC did, because the case raised at the Supreme Court of Kenya was about the confidence on the IEBC. No one challenged the results, and I think the IEBC has been vindicated for carrying out a transparent election.
Now, Ambrose, what were the highlights of the judgment for you as you watched Justice Martha Koome this afternoon?
Okay, my highlight was on the technology used by the IEBC and whether the president-elect attained the 50% of the valid vote cast plus 1 vote, and also on whether there was any differences between the Form 34A, that's the form for presidential election, that was uploaded to the IEBC public portal, and that was issued to agents at the polling stations. And also, whether the postponement of elections in Kakamega and Mombasa counties facilitated in low voter turnout. I think those were the main thing I was looking forward to as the Supreme Court made their ruling.
Okay, Ambrose, looking at the decision, it was a unanimous one by the judges of the Kenyan Supreme Court. Does this mean he had no valid ground for seeking an annulment of the elections in the first place?
Yes, I would say that. Because if you have been following the process, I think nobody challenged the results. The petitioners were talking about the IEBC, and they also brought up the issue of rejected ballots that was ruled on elections of 2013 by the same Supreme Court. And I think for me, I was not surprised by the verdict, because I really expected it. I've been following, and during the election, I worked as an election observer in one of the constituencies at the Lower Rift Valley. And for me, I was happy with the work of IEBC.
Rose, what is the reaction in Kenya as we speak to you now? Because just before we got into the studio, we were monitoring reports on social media, and we saw a bunch of, quite a number of Raila Odinga supporters threatening to burn down the Supreme Court building. What's the security situation like, and are there protests in different parts of the country?
Thank you. I think it depends with where you are. Because if you are in Nairobi, I would say most of the parts of Nairobi are peaceful. The Rift Valley is peaceful. The central Kenya, basically the strongholds of William Ruto are peaceful. But where we might have a problem is the Nyanza region, where Raila Odinga comes from. But if the supporters of Raila Odinga have been following the results, I don't think they should be complaining. I think
you think they should have expected this?
Yeah, because I think their secretariat mismanaged the elections. There were some polling stations, they had no agents, and the final results are at the polling station. It doesn't matter the results at the National Tallying Center, that is at the Bomas of Kenya. The results declared at the polling station are final.
Okay, join us on this conversation. We have Declan Galvin, who's the head of Inside Information and Intelligence at WS Insight. Thank you so much for joining us on the conversation. And we're looking at the Supreme Court's verdict by the Supreme Court Justice Martha Koech, who said there was no evidence brought forward for the annulment of this election or tampering of the election. How would you rate the process so far?
So I would say, so today is kind of a historic moment in what's really been a historic election in Kenya, where we have the Supreme Court who has validated what is now, we can say, the most transparent and credible election process, certainly in the last 15 years that Kenya's had. So that's really kind of, I think, the key reaction. So the Azimio coalition had the opportunity to petition. They followed through with that. That is their constitutional right. And the Supreme Court dismissed every single kind of key argument that they had. And what they have done, and as they said, William Ruto is now the president-elect, and they'll have a more extended ruling in the coming weeks. I think they have, the next 21 days or so. And we'll understand a little bit more of their recommendations, but they really kind of validated what was an enormous kind of success in terms of process.
Stay with you, Declan. Raila Odinga yesterday said he will respect the verdict. My question to you is, has there been any statements from Raila Odinga's camp following the judgment by the Supreme Court?
There has. So it was shortly after the Supreme Court issued its judgment, and the official communication from the Raila Odinga camp and Azimio is that I think the language they used was vehemently disagree, but accept the results, the ruling from the Supreme Court today.
What's the interpretation of that to you? How do you interpret that?
Look, so I think they're what it is a concession. Their concession was long in coming. Again, this election was truly credible. It was truly transparent. And they were provided the opportunity to air grievances that they had. So there's been an enormous amount of conversation behind the scenes between Azimio and Raila, with kind of Ruto and State House. And so I think that most people kind of anticipated something along these lines, and we were able to kind of brace for the kind of formal ruling.
Okay, Declan, before we go over to Ambrose, I want your take on Raila Odinga's reaction to this and its translating to supporters, because we hear of a bit of a riot going on in some parts of Kenya. I mean, how do you think this response has gone well with the supporters of Raila Odinga? Do you think probably he's actually causing more chaos in Kenya?
So I think we would expect that there would be some pushback from kind of the diehard supporters of Odinga. If we keep in mind, there are people who have believed in Raila Odinga and wanted him to be president now for 30 years. And this is most likely the last opportunity he'll have to actually run for president, and people are not happy. But by and large, the overwhelming majority of the country is accepting this, and tomorrow they're going to wake up and they're going to go to work, and they're going to continue on with their lives.
Thank you, Declan. Now, Ambrose, Raila Odinga's legal team had used the dissent of 4 of the 7 electoral commissioners, and for observers, neutrals, they thought, that's such a big deal that it's not a unanimous decision by the Electoral Commission, and not everybody agreed with Mr. Chibukati. And today, to bolster their case, they used that dissent. So why was it not a valid claim? And what was Justice Comer's verdict on this? What did she say about the dissenting 4 commissioners?
I think on that one, what the Constitution of Kenya envisaged is a commission, but the chairman of the commission will declare the final results. Justice Koome did talk through about the issue, and since most of these 4 commissioners were participating in tallying of the results and the announcing of the results at the Bomas, if you're watching, the Chief Justice asked a question, more of a comment, and she said, the 11th hour rapture within the commission does not invalidate the results, simply because the final results are those at the polling stations. What the IEBC commission did was just to tally the results, but there is no wrong in tallying the results. And what happened was, we were given the forms, you could download the results and tally for yourself. But the declaration was to be made by the chairman of IEBC. So what the Supreme Court ruled was that even if the 4 commissioners descended on their duties in the final hour, and yet they have been announcing the results, that does not invalidate the results, the final tally.
Okay.
And it does not interfere so as not to interfere with the will of the people.
Now, so looking at this verdict and the result of the verdict, Declan, now Justice Martha Koome said, and I quote, "Serious, there was malaise, that's like a general feeling of discomfort, and it indicates there is definitely a case for reform in the IEBC, but does not affect the conduct of 2022 elections." I mean, in your own analysis of the Kenya's electoral process, electioneering process, what areas do you feel the IEBC needs reform? Because it seems like there's, in some quarters, a general discomfort or distrust on the IEBC.
The key areas that I think we'll start seeing outlined in the Supreme Court's analysis of the IEBC is going to be around kind of the leadership construct of the commissioners, of the chairman, and a clearer delineation of kind of the command and overall kind of roles and responsibilities of these people, and where they are allowed to kind of weigh into the process, and kind of deeper clarity around their actual function. I think that's probably what Koech was describing, and I think an independent analysis would probably agree with that. We certainly have issues with kind of senior level management at the IEBC. We've had that for decades, and it'll likely be an issue, over the next few years.
And what about the elections? Do you see any cause for reform, things that you felt that should have been done better during the elections?
So I think that the process, so if we look at the progress that was made this election compared to 2017, it's actually staggering how much reform and transparency has been put in this process here in 2022 compared to all other previous elections. And so that's actually kind of the headline. But yeah, absolutely. All institutions must go through a process of ongoing renewal. And there needs to be better communication from the IEBC. There needs to be more clarity around kind of servers and server management. There needs to be more transparency around procurement, whether that's for outside, kind of what they've talked a lot about, foreigners being involved in the election, technology being involved in the election, where ballots are being printed, all of those kinds of procurement questions. Those need to be much clearer the next time around. And the IEBC did not do as good of a job as they should have around those kind of key issues.
No, thank you, Declan. Ambrose, let's talk about the million-dollar question. I'm talking about the colossus of Kenyan politics. Opposition politics has been trying to vie for the presidency for 5 times, and he's been part of the political structure in Kenya for the past 30 years. I wish he was sitting in front of me so I could ask him this question, but you could try your best as an analyst and economist. What's the political future for Raila Odinga? Does this signal the end of his ambition to become president of the Republic of Kenya? What's Baba's next plan? And will he work with Ruto? And will there be a handshake? Will he retire? Will he protest the court decision? So many questions, but you could do your best to attempt.
I think for now, he will respect the court ruling. But for the immediate political future, I don't know what he's planning. But for the handshake part, I think during his acceptance speech, the president-elect did say that he will work with the opposition as the official opposition. There will be no room for handshake. And for Raila Odinga, we normally say it's like a cat. He has 7 hearts. Whenever you feel he's down, he always bounces back.
But age is not on his side anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's what is eating on its supporters, because Baba has fought for almost everything in this country. But in the last part, I think the biggest mistake he did was siding with the government. I think that ran against him, and people were not for the status quo with the economic situation we are in Kenya. People wanted change, and the same way he assisted the late President Mwai Kibaki in 2002 against Uhuru Kenyatta, who was now being sponsored by the state. It's the same way Ruto has defeated him in this election.
Okay, but Ruto was also part of the government. You said the mistake he made was signing the government. Ruto is the vice president, so what's the difference?
You know what happened? Kenya is a funny country. And what happened? After the handshake, Ruto was more sidelined by the president. And Ruto used that he used that thing to convince the public that he was an outsider in a government he assisted in forming. And he sold himself as someone who would save the country and who was an outsider and would destroy the dynasties in Kenyan politics. That's the first family, Kenyatta family, and the Moi family, and the Odinga family.
Okay.
And I think people bought that because the economic situation in Kenya was not on the government side. People were really angry and they were depressed on what's happening on the economy.
Okay, I mean, it's obvious that Ruto alienated himself from the government. Now, quickly, Declan, what will it be like, William Ruto ruling Kenya and not having the back of the opposition? What will it be like? Quickly, please.
We should jump to conclusions just yet that members of the opposition won't be aligned with Ruto. Certainly, it's in everybody's interest to try to hatch out some kinds of deals. And so we'll need to see what kind of relationship Odinga and Ruto have moving forward. That will certainly be one of the strongest indicators to know how close opposition will work with UDA.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Declan Galvin, for joining us on the conversation.
And Ambrose, Koech, thank you for your insights and contributions. We do appreciate it.
Thank you.
You are to the conversation on News Central Television. It's trouble in Nigeria's opposition People's Democratic Party. Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike has been meeting with members of the ruling All Progressive Congress. We'll look into details of this and more when we return from this break. Do stay with us.